I never thought the person I brought into this world, the daughter I raised with love, food, shelter, and sacrifice, would ever become my greatest enemy. But life has a way of ripping the ground from beneath your feet when you least expect it. One moment, I believed I had a child who cared for me, who respected the blood, sweat, and tears I poured into building a future for her. The next, I found myself tied up in a cold basement, betrayed by her and the boy she called her boyfriend, as they whispered about how my death could hand them everything I had worked for. It all began with subtle changes in my daughter's behavior. At first, I thought it was just teenage rebellion. She had grown more distant, more secretive, glued to her phone with that smirk on her face whenever she texted someone late at night. I wanted to believe it was normal. After all, she was 18 now, stepping into adulthood, and every parent knows kids at that age crave independence. But then I noticed the disrespect creeping in, the way she no longer asked me for advice, but snapped at me when I questioned her choices. Then came the boyfriend. A cocky, smooth-talking boy from the neighborhood who carried himself like he was untouchable. The kind of boy who thought rules were meant for everyone but him. I didn't trust him from the start, but my daughter insisted he was different, that he loved her, that I didn't understand. I knew better, but I bit my tongue, hoping it was just a phase. Little did I know that phase would nearly cost me my life. The warning signs were everywhere. My daughter began asking more questions about my finances, about the property I owned, about the details of my will. At first, I brushed it off as curiosity. Maybe she was trying to learn, to prepare for the future. But then she pressed harder, asking how much the house was worth, how soon I planned to retire, what would happen if something unexpected happened to me. Those weren't questions of curiosity, they were questions of greed. One night, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. She was on the phone with her boyfriend, thinking I was asleep. Her voice was low, sharp, and urgent. If we had that house, we wouldn't have to worry about money ever again. All we need is to make sure Mom signs it over, or, well, you know. My heart sank. I stood frozen outside her door, listening to the girl I had raised talk about me like I was nothing more than an obstacle standing between her and wealth. I wanted to confront her then and there, but fear gripped me. What if she was serious? What if she and that boy were already planning something? I told myself maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it was just careless teenage talk, but deep down I knew the truth. The next week, everything unraveled. It was a Sunday afternoon when she suggested we go for a drive. "Just you and me, Mom," she said sweetly, as if trying to win back my trust. Against my better judgment, I agreed. But the moment I got into the car, I realized something was off. Her boyfriend was behind the wheel, and instead of driving toward the shopping mall like she promised, he steered the car toward the outskirts of town, down a deserted road that made my stomach twist with dread. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice sharp. My daughter glanced at me with a smile that wasn't hers anymore. It was cold, calculating. "Don't worry, Mom. We're just going to talk. You've been so stressed lately, I thought some quiet time would help." I reached for my phone, but before I could unlock it, her boyfriend snatched it from my hand and tossed it into the back seat. "No phones," he said, his tone mocking. "We need your full attention." Panic rose in my chest. I wanted to scream, to jump out of the car, but we were moving fast, and I was trapped between them. My daughter's hand pressed against mine, not with love, but with control. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," she whispered. Within minutes, we pulled up to an old abandoned house on the edge of town. The windows were boarded up, the yard overgrown with weeds. My heart pounded as they pulled me inside, down into a dark basement that smelled of mildew and rot. Before I could react, before I could even beg for them to stop, my daughter and her boyfriend tied my hands with rough rope and shoved me into a chair. I couldn't believe what was happening. My own child, the little girl whose hand I held when she took her first steps, whose tears I wiped away when she scraped her knees, was standing over me with eyes full of greed, demanding I sign over the deed to my property. "Mom, it doesn't have to be this way," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and fear. "Just sign the papers, and everything will be fine. We'll let you go, I promise." I stared at her, tears stinging my eyes. "You're my daughter," I whispered. "How can you do this to me?" Her face hardened. "I'm tired of living small. I'm tired of waiting for you to hand things over. This is my life, and I'm not going to waste it struggling when everything I want is right there in front of me." Her boyfriend chuckled, waving the papers in my face. "She's right. You've had your time. Now it's hers. Sign, or things might get uncomfortable." The fear was overwhelming, but beneath it burned a fire I didn't know I had. I refused to let them win. I refused to give away everything I had sacrificed for. I shook my head, my voice breaking but firm. "No, you will not take what I built. Not like this." Their frustration boiled over. My daughter slammed her hands against the table, her eyes blazing with anger. "Don't make me hate you, Mom. Just do it." But I stayed silent, my refusal clear. That silence set off a chain of events I never could have predicted. They argued, bickering back and forth about what to do with me. My daughter wanted to pressure me further, while her boyfriend grew more reckless, talking about how accidents happen all the time. Every word was a knife to my heart, but it also gave me time. Time to think, time to plan, time to find a way out. Hours passed, and they left me tied up in that basement while they went upstairs to argue. I could hear every word through the thin floorboards, him calling me stubborn, her saying she didn't want to hurt me, him mocking her weakness. The cracks in their plan were already showing, and I knew if I could hold on long enough, I might find a way to escape. But as I sat there in the dark, bruised wrists aching from the rope, one thought replayed in my mind like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. How did it come to this? How did the daughter I loved more than life itself become the person who wanted me gone? And even worse, how much further were they willing to go if I didn't give them what they wanted? The ropes bit into my wrists, the basement air was thick with dust, and every minute felt like an hour. Upstairs, their voices rose and fell, sharp, angry, panicked. My daughter and her boyfriend were no longer two kids with a plan. They were two reckless criminals unraveling before my very eyes. And I knew if I didn't find a way out soon, they might decide the simplest solution was to make me disappear forever. I twisted my wrists against the rope, ignoring the sting as the fibers scraped my skin raw. The chair creaked beneath me. My heart pounded with every sound, every footstep above me, every whisper of movement. Fear clawed at me, but so did something stronger, survival. I wasn't going to let my daughter and her foolish boyfriend erase me. Hours dragged on. They came down once, her holding the papers, him holding a pen. "Sign it, Mom," she pleaded, her eyes wild. "Please, just do it. This can all be over." I stared straight at her, shaking my head. "I will never sign. Not for you, not for anyone." Her boyfriend slammed the papers onto the table. "She's wasting our time. We should end this now. An accident, and no one will ever know." My daughter flinched at his words. For a moment, I saw the girl I had raised, fear flashing across her face. "No," she snapped at him. "We're not killing her. She just needs more pressure, that's all." They argued, voices overlapping, anger spilling out. Finally, he stormed upstairs, muttering curses under his breath. She lingered a moment, her eyes locked on mine. "Why are you making me do this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why couldn't you just give me what I wanted?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Because love isn't about stealing. And you're not the girl I raised. You're letting him turn you into something ugly." Her eyes glistened, but then she turned away and slammed the door behind her. I was alone again. Alone, but not hopeless. I scanned the room, desperate for anything I could use. In the corner, near a pile of broken wood, I saw a rusted nail sticking out of a board. If I could drag the chair close enough, maybe I could cut through the ropes. It took everything I had to shuffle across the floor, inch by inch, the chair legs scraping softly against the concrete. Sweat dripped down my forehead, my muscles burned, but finally I reached it. I twisted my wrists, pressing the rope against the jagged nail. Slowly, painfully, the fibers began to fray. Every second felt like a lifetime, but eventually, with one final twist, the rope snapped free. My hands were raw, bleeding, but I was free. I didn't waste a second. I untied my legs, stumbled to my feet, and crept toward the basement stairs. My heart hammered as I pressed my ear to the door. Their voices were louder now, yelling, fighting. "You're weak," he spat. "She'll never sign. You don't have the guts to do what needs to be done." "I'm not a murderer." My daughter screamed back. "This was supposed to be easy. You promised it would be easy." It was chaos, and in their chaos, I found my chance. I pushed the door open slowly, the hinges creaking louder than I wanted. I froze, but they were too busy screaming at each other to notice. I slipped out, creeping down the hallway toward the front door. Just as my hand closed around the doorknob, his voice cut through the air. "Where do you think you're going?" I spun around, my stomach dropping. He was there, eyes wild, fury twisting his face. My daughter stood behind him, pale and trembling. "Run," I told her, my voice steady despite the terror in my chest. "This is your last chance. Don't let him drag you down any further." But before she could respond, he lunged at me. We crashed into the wall, his hands gripping my arms like iron. I fought back with every ounce of strength I had, shoving, kicking, clawing. In the struggle, my fingers closed around a heavy lamp on the side table. With one desperate swing, I smashed it across his shoulder. He stumbled, cursing, giving me just enough time to bolt for the door. I ran into the night, my lungs burning, my legs screaming with every step. Behind me, I heard my daughter shouting, her voice breaking. "Stop. Don't hurt her." But I didn't stop. I couldn't. The neighbors' lights glowed in the distance, and I sprinted toward them like my life depended on it because it did. I pounded on the first door I reached, screaming for help. Within moments, lights flicked on, phones were dialed, and sirens wailed in the distance. When the police arrived, I was shaking so badly I could barely speak. But I didn't have to. The evidence spoke for itself: the rope burns on my wrists, the bruises on my arms, the frantic neighbors who had seen me collapse on their porch. Officers stormed the abandoned house and found him pacing like a caged animal, my daughter sobbing in the corner. They were both arrested that night. In the weeks that followed, the truth spilled out in the courtroom. My daughter's boyfriend had manipulated her, feeding her dreams of wealth and freedom if she could get me to hand over the property. But she wasn't innocent. She had gone along with it, planned with him, even lured me into that car. The jury saw her tears, but they also saw the evidence. Both of them were sentenced, him to years in prison, her to a juvenile facility where she'd have time to face the consequences of her choices. Sitting in that courtroom, I felt a mix of grief and relief. Grief that the daughter I raised had betrayed me so deeply. Relief that I had survived, that their plan had failed, that justice had been served. When it was all over, my lawyer asked me what I wanted to do with my property. I looked out the window, the sun shining brighter than it had in months, and I made my choice. I wasn't going to let their betrayal define me. I was going to live, rebuild, and protect what was mine, not just the house, but my dignity, my strength, my future. And as for my daughter, I still loved her, though my heart ached every time I thought of her face that night in the basement. Love doesn't disappear overnight, but trust once broken is almost impossible to rebuild. I walked out of that courthouse free, scarred but stronger, knowing one undeniable truth: they failed. They tried to take everything